Welcome to the Tiffany Mika podcast. What we do here is build the strength and courage in you to accomplish your big dreams and goals in your sport. No longer will you feel limited. You won't feel you're not good enough. You won't question whether you will make it. Those doubts will disappear because you will have the competitive edge over your opponents and leave them in your wake. And the bonus is others will notice. Listen up and take notes because I will show you exactly how to do it. Hey there, this is Tiff from Tiffany Mika podcast and welcome to today's episode. So as you know, we're going through these lessons, what I call gain the mental edge. Now, as you're well aware, if you've actually done the first lesson already, I'm actually sharing what I put together for the Get Focused Academy. So the Get Focused Academy no longer exists. I've disbanded that, and what I'm doing is I'm taking you through these lessons that I've put together for that. So you can hear the lesson through this podcast episode, wherever you hear your podcast episodes, or you can actually see it on YouTube. So if you go to my website, tiffany-mika.com, you'll actually see the video on my website as well, which will be attached to this podcast episode. So you'll be able to access both the episode in the sense of listening, and you can also see it. So all the detail is there. I'll leave also a worksheet at the bottom for you so that you can go through that. But if you've already started in that first lesson, in lesson 1, and you went through those life categories, can you let me know how you're going and what you've discovered? I'd really like to hear from you. So make sure that you do that. It's really important to me that that's having an impact on you. And this lesson that we're working on today is what you've been waiting for, is working on the sports category. So it's really important here to really identify what is working for you in the sense of in your sport, and also identify what's not working for you. And then we put a plan in place on how you can fix that. So really, really important lesson for you today. Hope you enjoy it. The audio, as I said, you'll hear now. Make sure you go and check out the video as well. And dream big, believe in you, go after your dreams. Hey there, Tiff here. What we're going to be doing in this area is we're going to be focusing on sport categories, and we're getting a baseline reality check. So following me is what you've got to do in the baseline reality check for your sport categories, and make sure you go through the whole content, the video content, and also the worksheets, because they're designed to help you in understanding where you currently are, what's missing, and then where we need to go from that point. So make sure you do all of that. That'll be following me. Hey there, Tiff here. What we're going to be looking at here is the baseline reality check for sport categories. And why we want to do that, and why I call it the baseline reality check, is to make sure that we actually have a starting point, a base. And we want to know like what our base is right now, so that we can get a clear understanding of what's actually going on in our sport, so that then if we feel like as though things are falling apart or whatever, we can always refer back to this and then go through this and see where we're at. So it's always good to do this. I would recommend to actually do a baseline reality check at the beginning of each quarter, simply because then you can actually see what where you're at. Is your baseline actually improving? Because that's obviously what we want it to do. But we also want to identify if there's areas in your sport that's actually holding you back and you're not aware of them. That's why it's really good to go through this, because sometimes you'll be working on specific areas in your sport and neglecting others because you'll have a particular focus on something that you've got to really work on, but at times you can also neglect the others. So we just want to get an understanding of where you're at, and then I'll show you how to work through and identify your sports categories. So I'm just going to go through these and show these to you. So while we do a baseline reality check, well, this is the start. This is where our starting point. And especially right now, if we start at this specific base, then we can then progress throughout our sport, but we've always got something to refer back to. And like I said, it's always really good to go into do the baseline reality check at the beginning of each quarter, because then you can actually see where you're at and have you progressed, have you not, what areas need more attention than maybe some of the other areas, so that we can get a really good understanding of what's going on in our sport. Because if you want to become the athlete that you want to become the champion that you want to become, you've got to really understand what, the nitty gritty of what's actually going on in your sport. So what we're doing here is we're crafting a system for moving forward and going after our goals. Just like that little girl. Remember, when you've got a dream, that's what it's all about. We're going after our big dream, right? Which is going to be your big goals. And don't be afraid to dream about it, okay? And I love showing this image of this young girl because she's dreaming of what's possible, all right? And that's what I want you to always be in, that state, is dreaming what's possible, because it's easy to get caught down into the nitty gritty and thinking that you're not getting anywhere and that you're not progressing, but actually you are. But I also want you to keep that, that childlike part of you, because we all should have that right throughout our lives. I know I am. I'm a big kid. My nieces think I'm a big kid. Always have that childlike part in our lives, so that we give ourselves the opportunity to dream, because that's how we create what we want to create, okay? So the sports categories that we're actually going to be looking at. So I'm just going to run through these and show you. Then I've got actually a worksheet for you to work through and really understand what's going on in various parts of your sport. So these are the areas that we're actually going to be looking at. The skills, okay? So we want to identify and see what your skill level is like, where it's currently at, and then we're going to identify where we want it to go. The discipline, look at the discipline of that doggy. They revolve around food. They love food. He's very good, isn't he? But we want to look at what your level of self-discipline is as well, in regards to, are you self-motivated? Are you not? Because if you want to become the athlete that you want to become, you have to be willing to be committed, willing to be dedicated, willing to do the work. Endurance, so we want to look at what your level of endurance is like in your sport. So it doesn't matter what sport you're playing, we have to endure both physically and mentally. So we want to look at what your level of endurance is like. We want to look at the speed in which you work. So you might have an intense type sport that you're playing. So obviously speed's going to be a big part of that. So we will need to look at that, but we can always improve our speed in anything that we do. Nutrition, incredibly important part of your sport. A lot of people tend to neglect the nutrition side of things, and it's actually really important that you do put the right fuel in your body, because if you want to perform like a Ferrari or a Formula One car, in those big races, you got to put the right fuel in your body. You can't expect to put crappy food in and expect a high performance result. You got to make sure that you're putting high performance food into your body so that you're getting a high performance result. And I'll share a story quickly with you. There was a guy, a long jumper, who actually got a silver medal. And he was an Australian, and he got a silver medal for his long jumping in one of the Olympic events a few years ago. And he prided himself on the food that he ate, and that was McDonald's, KFC, Hungry Jack's, Burger King, whatever else fast food there was. And I thought, and he was like, yeah, and I got silver medal. And I thought, just imagine if he actually ate the right food, how much better he would have been. He could have got the gold medal. right? So we want to make sure that the nutrition side of things is crucial to your development. Performance under pressure. Now, this is a big thing in sport, is when we're competing, there's pressure, isn't there? And it's not necessarily pressure from the opponent, it's just your own internal pressure that you put upon yourself. So we want to actually get a gauge of where you're actually at with regards to how you perform under pressure. Because if you're struggling in this area, which a lot of people tend to do, it's not a bad thing, right? Don't think that you can't compete. You can. It's just learning how to manage yourself when you're in a pressure situation. So we want to be looking at that too. Relationship with a team. So you may be playing in a sport where you're part of a team. So we want to actually look at where you rate that, and I'll show you how to do that. If you're you're competing in an individual sport, like you're a fighter or you're a golfer or you're a tennis player or you're something else that is as an individual sport, well, look at the relationship in which you have with the people that you're surrounded by. Who's the team that's involved with you? Could be your parents, right? Could be your personal trainer. It could be I've got an area about your coach anyway, but it could be a number of people that are actually helping you with your development. So we want to look at that relationship with the team. Your relationship with your coach, we actually want to look at where you're at with your coach. Do you have a really good relationship with your coach or not? Because that also can impact your development. Emotional control. This is a huge one. So we want to make sure that when we're competing, we're in control of our emotions. And this is this thing when you're performing under pressure. So we want to actually look at what your emotional control is like when you're in situations, especially when you compete. Same thing when you train, because those sorts of emotions are going to come up when you train, but it's going to come up more when you compete. So we want to look at that level of emotional control that you have or you don't have. The mental focus, so you can see here Serena's completely focused on getting that ball, but we want to actually look at where the mental focus is with you as well, because if you're not focusing and you're easily distracted by even thoughts in your mind or what's going on around you, then we need to actually make sure that we can focus you in and zone you in so that you're actually focusing and staying in the moment and doing what you need to be doing. So we want to look at where that level is as well. So this is what you're going to do at the end of this, but I'm going to take you through the worksheet. You're going to go through the baseline reality check for the sports categories. You're going to share in the WhatsApp group what you've actually identified. Ask questions if you need it. And I want you to get a folder dedicated to the Get Focused Academy, because what I want you to do is print up the worksheet that I'm going to share with you very shortly, and I want you to put it in your folder, because all of this information that we're working on is going to help as we go through the Get Focused Academy, is going to help you then identify what's missing and what we then need to be moving forward. And it's really good if you can just go back into the folder and go back through your notes versus scrambling and trying to find it online somewhere. Okay, so make sure that you get a Get Focused Academy folder and dedicate to that. When we go through the workshop, once you've worked through the worksheet, once you've worked through the worksheet, I want you to print it up and then put it into your folder so that it's easy access for you. Okay, so this is our baseline reality check, and the purpose of this is to actually design for you to understand a clear understanding of your current circumstances. So with this understanding, it's going to help you craft a system for moving forward and going after your goals. This is our worksheet. Okay, now for you to get access to that, I'll have that set up for you. You'll just click a button below this video. But what I want you to do is then you just go down and just hit make a copy. You copy that and then you can fill out the sheet. So you can actually, this is a Google Docs document, so you can actually fill out the sheet and go through it on your computer or whatever you're using, iPad or whatever. But you can go through it, put in the information, and then you can print it up. Or if you'd prefer to just print it up and handwrite it, that's fine as well. Okay, so what we want to do here is we want to go down into our sports category. So what I talked about just before was I was talking about the skills, the self-discipline, the endurance, the speed, the nutrition, the performance under pressure, the relationship with the team, the relationship with the coach, the emotional control, and the mental focus. So we want to be looking at all those categories in your sport. So we'll scroll down to the next page. So all of this, like I said, you can get access to. Now, what we're going to do in this step 1A is we're going to rate each category. And we're going to be looking at each category and we're going to be giving it a rating, either 1, which is terrible, or up to 5, which is great. Like you're really happy with where it's at. So, if we look at the first one, sports skills. Now, this one, I want you to actually really strip it back and identify each sports skill. So I've actually got that on the following page. So if we scroll down here and I talk about each technical skill, what I want you to do is write down all the skills in your sport. And then I want you to give them a rating. I want you to be very specific on each skill. You may need more space than that. You can always copy and add more space to this sheet. That's not a problem. But what I want you to do is identify each specific skill so that you're actually then giving it a rating. So this is the overall sports skills category that we're going to rate. But we're breaking that down into the actual technique or the technical skill in your sport, because I want you to get a clear understanding with where the level of each skill in the sport is at. Because remember, you got to be strong and rock solid in every technical skill that you have in your sport. If you want to be a champion, you've got to be that. Okay, and I know that you want to be a champion. I know that you want to be the best that you can possibly be in your sport, be number one. Then you've got to put these things in place and you have to identify them, okay? So that's what we're going to do with regards to, we've got to rate each technical skill. So you can see here, for example, I've put running forehand, rating it as a 2, right? It could be forehand, backhand, serve, and all the general skills, say in tennis. And then running forehand, short ball, lob, lob over the head. You can give them all a rating. So get really, really specific in each technical skill. Okay, what I want you to then do is I want you to give yourself a rating of between 1 and 5 of self-discipline. What do you rate that as? The endurance, so how long you can last in your performances when you compete. Have you got good endurance? What would you rate that as? This is all around your competition aspects too, by the way. It's not in your training. It's all regards to what's happening when you compete. So the same thing in speed. Are you happy with your speed? Does it need work? Give it a rating. The same with the nutrition. Remember I said to you how important nutrition is. I'd be interested to see what you rate that as. Performance under pressure. How do you perform under pressure? That's obviously during when you compete more so. Pressure does come up when you're training as well. But again, like I want you to be looking at all of this from a competition aspect. What's the rating? What's the rating that you give the relationship with the team? What's the rating that you give the relationship with your coach? Whether you've got emotional control or not. So how would you rate your emotions, your level of emotions? Can you control your emotions? And also those mental skills. Okay, so we want to be looking at those mental skills as well. What are your mental skills like? What would you rate it as? And like I said, by us doing this then just gives us an indication of where you're at. So if you end up with your sports skills end up with a rating of 2 or 3, then we're going to be looking at how can we get it to a 5. If your self-discipline is at a 4, how can we get it to a 5? If your nutrition is at a 1, how can we get it to a 5? If your performance under pressure is at -1, for example, I'm joking. If it's at 1, then okay, then how are we going to get it to a 5? What are the things we've got to be thinking about that's going to help us do that? Okay, so what we're doing there is we're identifying what we need to be looking at. So that's that step 1B, which I was talking about with regards to rating each technical skill. So now we're moving on to 2. So number 2 is the reasons why. What I want you to do here is in the comment section, I want you to list the reasons why you gave each category that rating. So if you gave your sports skills a 3, why? And you can write as much as you want. So blah, 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 right? And keep writing. Doesn't matter that it continues to take up space, because you can just do this online. It's not a problem. But remember, I just want you to then print it out when you've completed the sheet. So I want you to identify and share in this comment section for each area, why did you give that a 3, or why did you give it a 2, or why did you give it a 5, right? I want you to be really specific in giving the reasons why you gave each category that rating. So that's step 2A, but remember we worked on our technical skills as well, didn't we? So what we want to do here is, like, for example, that running forehand. Then we gave it a rating of a 2. Then we've got to list down, okay, well, you know, why did we rate that as a 2, right? And we're going to put all the reasons why we did that. Okay, so each skill that you've identified in your sport that you've given a rating, now in this comment section, I want you to identify why you gave it that rating. Okay, so now we're going to go down to number 3. So what we want to do here now is we want to identify what's missing. I call it the what's missing section. Okay, so we've got to look at what you believe that is missing in each category, because if you've given it a rating of a 2 or a 1 or a 3 or a 4, there's still areas that are missing. Even if you've given it a 5 and you're like, oh yeah, it's pretty good, you know, I'm really happy with it, could you improve it? So what I want you to do here is I want you to write in what you believe is missing in these specific areas in all these categories. So we want to do the same with the technical skill. Okay, so the running forehand, for example. So remember, we've got to break it down. So the running forehand, then we want to list what's missing, right? Slow, right? Hard to get speed quickly, right? Oops. So what we're starting to do here is, if we can identify what's missing, then that's going to give us the keys in areas that we actually need to be working on for our sport. Okay, so we want to make sure that we're working on that. So you can see here how we're being very specific. I want you to get a very, very clear understanding of where you're at with your sport. Okay, so now we've moved into step 4, what must be true. And what we want to do is this is this vision that I want you to have of what you want to be true by the end of the quarter and what you want to be true by the end of the year. So it's not, I don't want you to think that I've got to set a goal. I want you to say to yourself, well, what do I want to be true by this time? So if we say, what do I want to be true? Then you're like, okay, well, we'll use running forehand as an example. I want my running forehand, I want to be quick, fast. I want to be able to hit balls down the line with ease. I want to hit it in a specific spot down the line with ease. I want to be able to hit it specific spot cross court with ease. That's what I want to be true, right? So if we're looking at those of areas in which what you want to be true by the end of the quarter, and then also by the end of the year, whenever you're going through this Get Focused Academy, I want you to get really, really clear on what you want, okay? Because you'll be going through this baseline reality check, you'll be identifying what's actually missing. So then what we want to do is, when we identify what's missing, okay, what is it that we need, and how, and we'll get to the how shortly, but what we actually need, but what we want to be true. We can see what's missing, but how do we make that come true? What is it that we want, right? And this is what we've got to be looking at. So this is the same with the step 4, what must be true in the technical skills, what must be true by the end of the quarter, what must be true by the end of the year. And we put down all the technical skills of what we've been doing. So I told you that you're going to probably need some space with this to type it up. Doesn't matter how many pages it is. And this is why I want you to print it up as well, because we want to be able to refer back to it because we're going to need it in the future. So I want you to look at, what do you want to be true by the end of the quarter? What do you want to be true by the end of the year with regards to your technical skills in your sport? Really important that you look at that. Okay, then step 5A, action steps. So we've identified what's missing. So say, for example, the speed, right, for a running forehand really slow off the mark. Well, what action steps must be taken in order for you to achieve what must be true by the end of the quarter and the end of the year? What we're doing here is we're just going to brainstorm a lot of ideas, because we can section off end of quarter and end of the year in the next step. But in this step here, what I want you to do is just identify everything. So if we looked at the forehand, running forehand, and you're slow off the mark, you struggle to get to the forehand, you can't hit the ball in a specific place. Well, what are the action steps? Well, you got to be working on your speed. So you need to be working on getting quick off the mark, timing yourself. How are you going to get that explosive? You probably have to do a lot of weight training on your legs and explosive work, leg work. Working on your speed, going sidestepping and also sprinting. That's what I mean by action steps. Okay, so all I want you to do is just brainstorm it, get all the ideas out of your head in this action step area here, and be really specific. So, nutrition, right? What must be true? You want to be able to perform better, you want to be able to have a lot more energy. Well, what are the action steps? Maybe you need to change what you're eating. Maybe you have to fuel your body with different types of food. Right? What kind of foods would you be fueling with, fueling your body with, right? So you've got to be looking at those areas. The same with the mental skills. What kind of mental skills have you got to be looking at? Well, you got to know how to control your emotions. You got to know, even though I've got a complete section on that, but you've got to know how to get into, how to focus. You've got to learn how to tune people out. You've got to learn how to not let other people get into your head. What are the action steps that you've got to take in order for that to happen? Now, it doesn't matter if you don't know the answers, because that's the whole idea of why we have a coaching, live online mastermind group, locker room mastermind group. That's why we have that at the end of each month, so that you can catch up and ask lots of questions. We've got the live WhatsApp group as well, so that you can ask questions, and don't be afraid to do that. Reach out to me, ask questions. Look, I'm having a problem with this. I'm not really sure what I should be focused on here, or what I should be identifying, right? You're not on your own. There's a group around you that's going to help you get to where you want to go. So it's same with the action steps with the technical skills. See how I've sectioned it off though? You can see how important we've got to make sure the technique is as well. So yes, we're talking about the Get Focused Academy, and it's all about getting focused, but really we've got to get focused on every category in our life, in our sport. Not just sport, but life as well. But we want to identify each area so that we know that what we've got to work on, so that we're well-rounded, right? We don't have any weak spots. We have strengths in all areas. Okay, so we want to identify what all those action steps are. Now, once you've identified, because you've just had that brainstorming, we move into step 6, and actually what you're doing here is you're identifying the sport category action steps for the end of the quarter. So you've identified all the action steps. Now we're going to section it off and go, okay, well, what do I want to be true by the end of the quarter? What is the action steps that I need to have in place? Because that's helping you put a plan in place. It's making you aware of what you've actually got to be working on. We'll get to on how to actually put everything together into the vision part of the Get Focused Academy. If that is not up yet, it will be up at some point in the future. But the thing is now is we've got to really identify what's actually going on in your sport. That's the whole idea of the of this program, right? And it's the whole idea of this baseline reality check. We've got to make sure that we're really looking at each area. Okay, I know I keep saying that, but that's how important it really is. So here in each category, we're going to write down what end of quarter action steps need to be taken place, because just prior to that, we've just brainstormed all the action steps we need. Doesn't mean that you have to do everything in that quarter. You may need to do some in that quarter and then some towards the end of, for the rest of the year. So we're identifying what needs to be done now is pretty much what we're looking at. Okay, so same with the technical skills. We've got to look at all the action steps that need to be in place. End of quarter action steps for all for everything, all the categories. The action steps for the end of quarter, which I was talking about with regards to the technical skills. Then we move down. And then the action steps for the end of year. These ones you won't have to worry about right now. The ones that you have to actually really focus on is the ones with the ones that are due at the end of the quarter, what you'd like to accomplish. So those are the ones that you want to focus on now, because that's what you've identified. The end of year ones, may come up in the next quarter of when you're working on them, or you may have some more time in which you can then focus on those later. But the ones that you've identified for the end of the quarter, these are the things that you got to be working on now. Okay, so we're just going to go through here, work through the action steps, and just like I said, it's really about you getting everything out of your head and being a bit more structured with where you put things in place. Again, we've done that for the technical skills as well, for the action steps that need to be done by the end of the year, that in order for you to achieve what's true for the end of the year. So that's what you've got to be working on. So remember to get a copy of this. When you click on the button below, then you just go up to File, you go down, you hit Make a Copy. It will then make a copy for you. You put your name in there so that you know that belongs to you, and then you get to work at it. Okay, so what I want you to do now is get to work. I want you to dream big, believe in you, go after your dreams, and I look forward to hearing what you've identified for your sports categories.
Would you like to be able to reach your potential? Great. This is what you need to do. You can get a free copy of my book, Focus, How to Reach Your Potential in Sport, Business and Life. All you need to do is go to tiffanymika.com/free book. Get a free copy of Focus, How to Reach Your Potential in Sport, Business and Life, and I look forward to seeing you there. Dream big, believe in you, go after your dreams.